Since the start of 2022, Ukraine has seen incredible losses to its people, homes and communities during Russia's relentless war on the country. Much of the world has seen evidence of this, filmed through devices from those on the ground or captured from above via satellites.
Today we're talking about the role of open source intelligence in the war in Ukraine.
It's called open source intelligence.
It's called open source intelligence, or OSINT.
To help make sense of what is happening on the ground during the fog of war, the open source community has risen to new heights to verify, map and track incidents in Ukraine.
It's like this one. The Center for Information Resilience has created this interactive map of the war in Ukraine.
If you have been following this activity, it is likely you have come across our map, which has been featured by international media, in presentations and at conferences. We've upgraded the map so that you can search, view and interact with the information more easily than before. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through how the map started, how we verify information, and how to use some of the map's best features so that you can use it to do your own research and find out what is happening in Ukraine, as well as keep eyes on Russia. First, how did we get here? In January and February 2022, our team was tracking large build-ups of Russian military vehicles on the backs of trains moving closer to key locations along the border of Ukraine. Our team and the wider open source community was working rapidly to verify and find the location of some of these videos, and also using satellite imagery to identify the build-up of those forces. We started to log all of these in a spreadsheet, along with saving all of the footage and the original post details in case the content needed to be used by researchers, investigators, or lawyers in the future. Our map grew from what was only a few green pins, the colour used to track Russian military forces, to showing hundreds of pins, which each are videos and photos of Russian military forces headed towards Ukraine's borders. Fast forward to the end of 2022, and we have a database of more than 16,000 entries of archived videos and photos, and a map that has been used by many as a research tool. So how do we verify the content? Let's take a look at a video as an example from the city of Kharkiv. So we'll zoom in on the city area and let's perhaps pick this video along this street here. Now we can see a small description on our map of this. We'll open it up. We can see the embedded tweet, the coordinates and things like that. But how do we actually verify that content to get these coordinates and to make sure that what we're seeing here is correct? Well, we can look at the video and we can see the video here. It's essentially a run through of downtown Kharkiv on what it alleges to be March 8 and shows obviously lots of destruction or damage to buildings in that street. It's also from an account that's fairly trustworthy as well. It's a verified account. It's received a number of retweets, no negative comments. But we can also go a little bit further than that. How we usually check this content is by first having a look at the buildings that we see here. So what we're able to see is a large building there. The car appears to turn a corner. We have a large building there. We have a low building here on the left, which looks like quite an old, nice looking building with some trees in front of it. The car drives down the street a bit more. We have a green looking building there, and it goes past that other old building. Lots of interesting looking buildings there, and also a brown looking building there. By downloading the video and matching it with the scene, we're able to see perhaps where this would have been exactly filmed from. So for example, we have this building sticking out here with a kind of yellow front. Then we have some trees and we have this large building here with interesting corner sides and kind of a square top as it drives past. We see a little bit more clear version of that as we go past here. This building that we see here is a very similar match to what we can see, and we can even have a look at some of the photos from this building and see if they match up to what we're seeing there. As we can see, the building appears to match the similar colour. One of the other ways that we're also able to verify information is by using Google Street View as well, which in some places, such as city areas, is quite widely available. Remember that we're driving down in this direction, and the car shows us a clear view of the street as it drives down there as well. For example, we can see the balconies right here, and we can even see that building in the background with the trees as well. By playing this simple game of spot the difference, we're able to make sure that this video is in the correct location. So what are one of the ways that we can verify the time that this video was uploaded or taken? Well, there's a number of ways we can do that. One of them is by looking at much of the other imagery uploaded that day or around a similar frame of time. You can see that there's a lot of geolocated videos present on the map. So for example, we can even have a look at this one here. We can see it's uploaded on the same day. We can even cross-reference that with the original video and notice that it actually shows the exact same street area and the exact same part of that street sign or that piece of material coming out of that door. We can match that with the green frame that we see here on this building here, and we know that that's quite unique. It hasn't been cleaned up yet. It's still fresh from destruction and a strike. Those two videos from two separate sources match each other, which is quite useful in verification. With the functionality of the map, we can also use, for example, having a look at only events in the frame that we see here. And we can actually use a function to search by the date range. So remember that our footage was uploaded on around March 8. So we can have a look from say March 3 to March 10 and have a look at those videos. And notice we've got quite a fair bit of footage to look at. This may be footage of destruction or even showing some strikes that have happened in Kharkiv during that period. When looking at how we review the time as well, we also look at things such as shadows, changes to the land, and also having a look at freely available or commercial satellite imagery to see if those findings can also be identified on that satellite imagery. When looking at where this was filmed as well, you can also double check that in the browser by simply using the satellite view as well, just to check out what buildings have been destroyed or what location this is if you wanted to do your own verification within the map. So how do we actually use the map and what are the tools available to us? Well, first, let's visit one area such as Mariupol and have a look at the civilian infrastructure damage and Russian firing positions. Mariupol suffered a lot of infrastructure damage during 2022 as Russia laid siege to the city. How can we see that? We can see that on the map already, photos and videos, but a lot of these pins aren't actually just showing civilian infrastructure damage. So if we have a look at the categories section up here, we can go to there, we can select civilian infrastructure damage, and we can also select Russian firing positions and click apply. What this now shows us is in brown pins that show civilian infrastructure damage, and then these green ones over here are actually Russian firing positions. So for example, we can have a look at the civilian infrastructure damage over here. So it's a video on Twitter. We can open this one up and we can have a look at this. It shows Russian military forces running through Mariupol, but it's been tagged as civilian infrastructure damage because we can see just how many buildings in the background, and from this drone footage we can just see the level of destruction over Mariupol here. Let's see what the Russian firing positions actually look like, especially these ones over here. Here's one video that has been identified from this location. And here's satellite imagery that's been identified from a location near an alleged grave, which shows artillery deployed near Mariupol. As you can see, this is a really handy research tool for combining some of these categories of footage and photos to show what's happening on the ground. For another example, let's look at the location of Bakhmut, which has been quite popular in the news for its recent conflict. As you can see, for quite a small town, there's a lot of pins, a lot of footage showing different content, namely destruction. If I click on only events in map frame, we can now scroll through and have a look at what's actually happened here. in Bakhmut. By scrolling on the left, you can actually view all the footage through there. What if I didn't want to go through all of this data, but only wanted to look at the western side of the town? I can use the rectangle function. I can select the western side of the river here, and I can click view only for that data. Just making sure I'm viewing the river there on the satellite imagery, and we can view that data through here and see what things have been targeted. We can also see and click through the categories and see if there's maybe content on ground battle, civilian casualties, or bombings or explosions. And yes, we can see that there is some footage or photos tagged as that. When viewing the content on the map, you notice that when I hover over a specific pin, it shows the content level. So whether it's violent footage, moderate footage, or low level of violence within it, but also a brief description and the credit and the tag as well and the date. If we click on that a little bit more, we can see more information. So for example, the link, type of affected area, well, this is healthcare. We also have things such as credit. Now this credit gives back to the open source community from the group that either geolocated, verified, or provided this evidence or information. And we also link back to the original geolocations to just give back to the open source community that's provided some of this content. Of course, all of this content gets reviewed by those of us working on the project as well, especially from senior investigators. You also have something called the entry number. That's the entry in our database, so that should this tweet ever be removed or should it ever be taken down, we have all of the photos, the original link, and the original text stored within that archive as well. In looking at overview, trends, and statistics of what's been happening in Ukraine, we have some really good functions available on this map as well. For example, we can show an incremental time window. So if I click play on this, we can show what has happened in Ukraine according to the data that we've verified over time. You can see this play through day by day, week by week, month by month, and show the activity as it increases within the country. What you can also do is play that through a moving time window as well, and select the window of time you want to show. Perhaps you want to play this by month. Let's have a look at that. You can also select other windows of time. For example, you can see the most recent window of time, or you can see what's happened in the last 2 months according to our verified data. One of the useful added functionalities is to be able to play that timeline for specific categories. One of the interesting topics has been around civilian infrastructure damage. So for example, if I wanted to look at the eastern side of Ukraine, select infrastructure damage, civilian infrastructure damage, and show an incremental time window, I could now play that through. And what we're seeing here is the verified data of civilian infrastructure damage playing through over time since the start of the conflict, right through to the current date of verification. So there you have it. This is the Eyes on Russia map brought to you by the Center for Information Resilience, C4ADS, and also the open source community of those involved with this, such as GeoConfirmed, Bellingcat, and other great organizations and researchers and individuals that have helped along the way. I should also extend a big thank you to the many brave people who filmed footage on the ground, allowing us to capture this information. Please do visit eyesonrussia.org, and if you have any questions or any further inquiries, please visit the About page where you can find out how to contact us as well as extra information.